In the 5th year of our marriage, the poor student, Sherry, I sponsored for 5 years became my husband's secretary. In the 6th year, my husband, Ethan Lee, bought a villa for the secretary's dog. All because the secretary posted a message on her social media, "The dog is my baby. Whoever gives it a house is its dad." Less than 3 days later, she posted a photo, a man and a woman holding a white Samoyed. The caption read, "Our little family." The man's hand was wearing the same wedding ring as mine. I casually liked the post, but it was quickly deleted. Minutes later, my husband, who hadn't been home for half a month, called and angrily scolded me. "What's the big deal with me taking back your shares in the company? I've told you before, Sherry is better than you at managing the company. Now you're just feeling idle, so you're sending her messages to curse her?" I could faintly hear soft crying in the background. I was confused, and before I could explain, the call was hung up. Half an hour later, Sherry posted a new update on her social media, showing off the share transfer contract that had just been taken from me. The caption read, "If he loves me, he'll give me everything. If not, he won't." At the end, she even specifically tagged me. I laughed coldly and immediately took a screenshot to keep evidence. She's still young and impatient. And doesn't understand that in the face of interests, love is nothing. When Ethan called me, I was already in contact with the best lawyer, preparing to file for divorce. Just 2 weeks ago, Ethan took away 20% of my shares in the company, citing my illness. He claimed it was to let me rest and not worry about the company. But then, he bought the secretary Sherry's dog a luxurious villa. The bank card was with me, and the message of the transaction was sent to my mobile phone, but I was still stunned when I found that he spent millions for a dog. Half a month ago, when I asked him for $5 million to buy a special medicine to improve my chances of recovery, Ethan rejected me without hesitation. With a troubled look on his face, he said, "Sophia, you know how difficult the company is right now. If it weren't for the large-scale layoffs, we'd probably be facing a financial crisis. In this situation, how could I get $5 million for you to buy that medicine? Just bear with it for now." After saying that, he put on his coat and left. The next month, he even didn't come back once. Since that day, Sherry's social media updates have never stopped, posting 8 times a day, showing off her happiness. I stared at my phone without expression. Through Sherry's posts, I saw Ethan appear at the edge of the photo, with a relaxed and indulgent smile. I could also see that Ethan had settled in the villa. They went to IKEA together, bought many pieces of furniture, bedding, and pillows. My heart grew colder. A month ago, I was diagnosed with a rare disease that prevents any wounds from healing, causing continuous bleeding. The doctor said that this symptom was a complication caused by the rare disease. If the bleeding episodes continue, I will lose my memory and forget many things. I don't want to lose my memory, so I intentionally stayed at home to avoid accidents. I even lied to Ethan, telling him that my condition might paralyze me, and I would need him to take care of me for the rest of my life. I thought he would respond like he did 6 years ago when we got married, saying firmly, "Whether poor or rich, healthy or sick, I will protect you forever." But now his expression was indifferent. He silently smoked one cigarette after another on the balcony. In the end, he just said, "Sophia, I won't divorce you. But for the rest of my life, I need someone to be with me. I also want to have a child. You can't stop me from being with someone else." The someone else that Ethan mentioned was his secretary, Sherry. She was a poor student I had supported for 5 years. She had always been grateful to me and would visit me during holidays, calling me Ms. Dong. After graduation, she couldn't find a job, so I used my connections to help her secure a good position. When I introduced her to the job, Sherry sweetly smiled and said, "It's not necessary, Ms. Dong. I've already found a job as Mr. Lee's secretary." In front of me, she lovingly held Ethan's arm, smiling innocently. The smile on my face slowly faded. My gaze slowly dropped to the hand that was draping around my husband's arm. Ethan sensed something was wrong, immediately pushed her away, and explained, "Sophia, Sherry just graduated this year. She doesn't know anything. She's still just a kid, don't take it to heart." But it was this kid who didn't know anything, deliberately got Ethan drunk at the company's annual banquet and took him to a hotel. Back home, I waited for him the whole night and didn't sleep a wink. But they were entangled in the hotel room. The next morning, Sherry called me. "Ms. Dong, Mr. Lee got drunk last night. I took him to Hotel A. Can you come pick him up?" After I arrived at the hotel, I saw Ethan lying shirtless on the bed, his neck covered in hickeys. However, Sherry pretended to be innocent, saying, "Ms. Dong, Mr. Lee got drunk last night, and he mistook me for you. It's all my fault, I don't blame him." Just as I was about to slap her, Ethan rushed over and shielded her behind him. "Sophia, what are you making a fuss about? What happened last night was an accident. If you want to blame someone, just blame me. Why are you hitting her? She's innocent." But he didn't even see that she was giving me a provocative smile behind him. I shook my head, trying to clear these messy memories from my mind. I continued to focus on the evidence organized on my laptop. Over the past 2 years, Ethan had spent lots of money on her. He bought her designer handbags, clothes, and skincare products. I had screenshots of all the transaction details as evidence. I had once wondered why Ethan didn't hide his relationship with Sherry from me. Instead, he wasn't afraid to let me see every penny he spent. A few months ago, when I asked him this question, Ethan paused for a while, then said seriously, "Sherry is so pure, I don't want her to be a mistress. She's my girlfriend." I suddenly laughed. I couldn't help but ask, "What about me? After 6 years of marriage, what am I?" Ethan always looked at me with a pity gaze, so pitiful it was almost ruthless. "Sophia, you're sick, and you can't be with me for the rest of my life. I know you love me, and you definitely don't want to see me grow old and lonely. You want to see someone be with me, right?" At that moment, I understood. Some men are destined to be heartless. Ever since Ethan bought a villa for Sherry's dog, I made up my mind to divorce. I moved as much money and property as I could out of my name, sending part of it to my mom and the rest to my best friend. Even if we divorce or something were to happen to me, I hoped they could live better. After organizing the divorce evidence, I drove to the company. When the receptionist saw me, she raised an eyebrow in surprise and smiled. "Mrs. Lee, what are you doing here? Long time no see." Usually, whenever there were problems at Ethan's company, I would come to help, offering advice and helping him through tough times. Everyone at the company knew that the Lee Group had reached its current scale, partly because of my contributions. I smiled and asked, "Where is Ethan?" The receptionist glanced inside, her face showing some hesitation. "Mr. Lee is probably still busy." I was about to go inside, the receptionist quickly blocked me. "Mrs. Lee, Mr. Lee has instructed that no one is allowed to enter. If you have something urgent, perhaps you can tell me, and I'll pass it on." I gently pulled up the corner of my mouth and took a divorce agreement out. "I'm here to find him for a divorce." As soon as I finished speaking, the whole company fell silent. All employees looked at me in shock, some whispering to each other. The receptionist was so stunned that her mouth couldn't close. Seizing the opportunity of her daze, I bypassed her and pushed open the door to Ethan's office. "No." The receptionist's voice came too late. The door had already been pushed open. Inside the office, Sherry was sitting on Ethan's lap, his arms wrapped around her waist, and the two were kissing passionately. The outside was filled with gasps. The murmurs quickly grew louder. "No wonder Mrs. Lee wants a divorce, Mr. Lee is openly having an affair in the office. I've suspected Sherry for a long time. She's just a homewrecker, truly shameless." The people inside slowly turned around slowly upon hearing the commotion. When they saw me at the door, Ethan's face instantly darkened. "Sophia, what are you doing here?" He coldly ordered the curious employees to get back to work. "Anyone who keeps watching, go collect your wages and don't come back to work anymore." Everyone cautiously observed my expression. They thought I had come to catch him in the act, or that I was about to make a scene. But I didn't care anymore. I expressionlessly handed him the divorce agreement. "Ethan, read the terms inside. Is there anything you want to add?" Let's divorce today. Ethan suddenly looked up at me, shocked. After a long pause, he chuckled softly. Sophia, are you out of your mind? Do you even know what you're saying? You have a rare disease now. Forget about remarrying, even surviving is a problem for you. Besides, after divorcing me, you'll have nothing. Are you sure you want to get a divorce? I shook my head and laughed coldly. Ethan, I suggest you read the terms first. And there's a prenuptial agreement attached to this divorce agreement. Once you've seen it, you won't say such things. 6 years ago, when Ethan knelt down to propose, he handed me a prenuptial agreement. It specifically stated that he would remain loyal to me for life. If he ever cheated or changed his heart, he would give up everything and the property would all go to me. Over the years, I had stayed by his side, never leaving. I watched him rise from a poor office worker to a successful entrepreneur with a net worth of billions. It seemed that he had long forgotten his initial promise. He had even completely forgotten the prenuptial agreement. Hearing this, Ethan's expression changed slightly. He lowered his head and began flipping through the agreement. He flipped through a few pages roughly, and his face turned ashen. Seeing he had finished reading, I spoke indifferently. I've consulted a lawyer. The prenuptial agreement is legally binding. I'm here today to have you sign it. And by the way, to take back the company's ownership. My words were firm, but Ethan's expression grew more and more darkened. He looked at me deeply, then leaned closer, smiling. Sophia, do you think you can threaten me now? The prenuptial agreement was just something I wrote for fun. Do you really think that such a big company is something I can just give to you? What a joke. Ethan sneered, then raised his hand and ripped the prenuptial agreement into pieces. Furious, I grabbed the ashtray from the desk and threw it at him. Ethan, you are truly despicable. Ethan stood there like a thug, smiling and watching me. When the ashtray flew at him, he didn't even dodge. It hit his forehead, immediately leaving a gash, and blood began to trickle down from his face. Sherry, who had been eavesdropping at the door with a cup of tea, saw Ethan's forehead bleeding and rushed at me, yelling. Sophia, you vile woman. How could you hit Ethan? Look at how painful his forehead must be after being hit. Sherry, with a look of concern, tried to approach him to comfort him, but was stopped by Ethan. Sherry glared at me with hatred. You shrew, don't you just go crazy for money? You're sick now, you can't even take care of Ethan for the rest of his life. How dare you morally blackmail him? Even if you're divorcing, you should leave with nothing. Sherry was avenging Ethan. She picked up the shattered pieces of the teacup from the ground and lunged at me. I want you to feel Ethan's pain too. Seeing the sharp fragments were about to pierce my skin, I realized the danger and hurriedly stepped back. But Sherry still hurled it fiercely at me. She lost her balance and nearly fell, and one of the shards landed right on my calf, slicing my skin. Blood instantly gushed out. My face turned pale. I immediately pressed my hand against the wound, but the bleed kept flowing, and I couldn't stop it. Suddenly, I remembered the doctor's warning, you absolutely cannot afford any injuries. One of the complications of your rare disease is a blood clotting disorder. If the bleeding doesn't stop, you will die. In a panic, I grabbed tissues from the table and frantically pressed them against the wound. But within moments, the blood soaked through, turning the tissues crimson. Ouch! Sherry, standing nearby, dramatically held her finger, squeezing out a few tears. Ethan, my hand is bleeding. What do I do? Ethan's face instantly filled with concern as he swept her into his arms. Don't worry, Sherry. I'll take you to the hospital right now. As he brushed past me, I weakly grabbed his pant leg. Ethan, call an ambulance for me. If the bleeding doesn't stop, I'll die. He paused, then turned to glare at me coldly. Sophia, when will you stop this nonsense? It's just a little cut, stop pretending it's life or death. Do you really think these theatrics will make me agree to divorce you? Dream on. I watched his retreating figure with sorrow. Sherry was cradled in his arms, and before leaving the office, she even threw me a triumphant glance. When Sherry had nicked her finger, yet he made a huge fuss and carried her off to the hospital. Meanwhile, I was bleeding out, and Ethan acted as if he didn't even see it. It truly fit that saying, when someone stops loving you, they stop caring. Even if you hang yourself, they'll think you're just swinging on a rope. In the end, it was the receptionist who called the ambulance for me. By the time it arrived, I had already lost too much blood and passed out. The young employees, who had never seen such a scene before, were all pale with fear. All of them followed me into the ambulance. I don't know how much time passed before I finally woke up. The receptionist was sitting by my hospital bed, her eyes red. "Mrs. Lee, you're finally awake." My gaze fell on her tightly clutched phone. It showed over a dozen unanswered calls to a contact labeled Mr. Lee. I curiously glanced at the 4 bag hanging by my bed. It was filled with dark red blood. And the wound on my calf had actually stopped. "Mrs. Lee, the doctor said you have a blood clotting disorder," the receptionist explained, her voice trembling. "You were unconscious for a full day and night. A few of us took turns donating blood for you and it finally stopped." Tears welled up in her eyes again. I never thought Mr. Lee could be so heartless. You were so seriously ill, yet he didn't even come to see you." My mind was dazed for a moment. It took me a while to remember who Mr. Lee was. Oh, right, Ethan. Sure enough, the doctor hadn't lied. Excessive blood loss really was making me slowly lose my memory, bit by bit forgetting the people and events in my life. If that was the case, then I needed to act fast to reclaim the company and all my assets. Since Ethan refused to sign the divorce papers or leave empty-handed, then I had to take legal action. Over the years, Ethan had spent a significant amount of our marital assets on Sherry. I intended to reclaim every penny, even if it meant donating it all. I wouldn't let those ungrateful snakes benefit. Just as I was consulting my lawyer, the receptionist rushed over with her phone. "Mrs. Lee, it's bad. Someone posted what happened the other day online, and now everyone is cursing you." I glanced at the screen. The link led to a short video, just a few seconds long. It was the scene where I was throwing an ashtray at Ethan. The caption read, "This woman has no conscience. Despite her husband standing by her through her illness, she's greedy and ungrateful, not only demanding a divorce but also trying to strip him of everything." The comments below were even worse. "I know her, she used to be a teacher, then got greedy and went into business. She's so scheming. Rumor has it she even pushed a poor student she sponsored into her husband's bed just to force a divorce. What a nightmare of a woman. Marrying her must be some kind of karmic punishment. Clearly, someone had hired trolls to smear me." I saved screenshots of everything and forwarded them to my lawyer. After 3 days in the hospital, I urged the receptionist to go home and rest. She pitied me for being alone, but she didn't know I was used to it a long time ago. I remembered 2 years ago, on our anniversary, I wore a dress Ethan had gifted me. I thought he'd like it. But, he looked at me with disgust and pushed me away. "Sophia, do you think you're still in your 20s? Dressing like this is embarrassing. As the wife of a CEO, you should act the part, don't wear fancy clothes and lose my face." From then on, I avoided the public eye. When the media interviewed Ethan, I hid far away. At first, he told reporters that we had built the company together from scratch. But gradually, he erased my contributions, taking all the credit for himself. I also remembered when Ethan had just bought a villa for Sherry's dog. I couldn't help but call him, but before I could speak, he snapped, "Sophia, are you trying to take back that 20% stake in the company again? I've told you, since you're sick, just focus on resting. Leave the company to those who know what they're doing. Sherry is handling things professionally, and can help me handle work issues. Don't try to get the shares back." Every time I recalled this, I feel he is heartless. Back when we were struggling to build the business, when he was drunk and despairing, I was the one who drank through endless dinners to secure opportunities. When we finally overcame the crisis, he held me tightly, tears in his eyes, and swore, "Wife, I'll never let you suffer again." I'll make you the envy of everyone, you'll have everything you want. But now, I couldn't even get a divorce. But I still forced myself to remember these moments with Ethan. If I didn't, I might forget them entirely soon. Half asleep in the dim hospital room, I heard the door open. A familiar figure stepped in. His name was on the tip of my tongue, but I unable to recall it, until Ethan sat beside me and spoke softly. Sophia, I didn't visit these days because I want to teach you a lesson. You've been spoiled, throwing around divorce threats. Since you keep thinking about the company matters, I've discussed it with Sherry, we'll return your 20% stake. From now on, you two stay out of each other's way. No more causing trouble, and no more talk of divorce. I studied his carefully controlled expression and couldn't help but laugh. After 6 years of marriage, how could I not know his intentions? But he still didn't understand me. Ethan, I said slowly, I've made myself clear. I don't want 20%. I want everything back, the entire company. You cheated. You'll leave with nothing. That was your promise. Why are you so determined to divorce? Ethan's brows furrowed tightly. Do you really think you can live as comfortably as you do now without me? A bitter smile flickered across my lips, hidden in the shadows. The Ethan I once knew had long since become unrecognizable. Now, he was convinced I dared not divorce him, could not divorce him, and even believed that I shouldn't divorce. He saw me as some clinging vine, unable to survive without him. What a joke. I wasn't even afraid of death anymore. So why would I continue to endure this miserable life just for a bit of comfort? Divorce. There's no other option. Ethan, we both know our marriage is already broken beyond repair. And this, all of this, was your choice. With that, I closed my eyes. Ethan must have realized I wouldn't budge. He stared at me in silence for a long moment before finally leaving without another word. On the day I was discharged from the hospital, I called my lawyer and arranged to meet at a cafe. But before I could even step out of the hospital, a swarm of reporters surrounded me. Mrs. Lee, is it true that you and Mr. Lee are getting divorced? Is it true that you're forcing Mr. Lee to leave the marriage penniless? Is it true that you let the student you sponsored climb into your husband's bed? Doesn't that disgust you? Microphones were shoved in my face, one after another. A wave of dizziness hit me. Please move aside. I tried to push past them, but the crowd only pressed closer, leaving no room to escape. I don't know who shoved me down. I fell hard, my hands and knees scraping against the ground. Blood welled up instantly. The dizziness intensified. I could only feel warm liquid gushed from my palms and knees, pooling around me. Gasps erupted around me. Blood, so much blood. Everything was red. I was drenched, as if submerged in a sea of blood. Amidst the chaotic sounds of panic around me, some were calling for an ambulance, while others were trying to disperse the crowd. Yet, I felt strangely calm. If I die like this, maybe it's for the best. The only regret? I hadn't managed to divorce. Even in death, I wouldn't be free. Suddenly, the crowd was forced apart. Someone was running toward me, frantic. Sophia. A hoarse, almost shattered voice tore through the noise, nearly deafening me. I tried to look up, to see who was shouting so loudly, but my vision blurred. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't see his face clearly. Ethan's breath came in ragged bursts, his expression wild with panic. Why is there so much blood? Sophia, don't you dare close your eyes. Stay awake. Someone was roughly shaking me, slapping my cheeks. So noisy. I wanted to push them away, but my arms were too weak. My hands were sticky and couldn't lift. Then, I was lifted off the ground. Ethan was running, carrying me like a madman back toward the hospital. Hold on a little longer. Just a little longer. We're almost at the hospital. But darkness swallowed me anyway. I dreamed of my youth, of a man who once bought 999 roses and waited outside my home for 3 days and nights. My parents had scorned him, called him a penniless fool. But I had believed, with all my heart, that he would love me forever. Then I dreamed of our wedding. No grand celebration, no crowd of well-wishers. Just the two of us, happy, as if we held the whole world in each other's eyes. But then, the scene shifted. After marriage, I had sponsored a poor student through college. What was her name again? I couldn't remember. She had been a good girl, grateful, and visited me during holidays. But later. Huh? What happened later? I thought I wouldn't wake up this time. But 3 days later, I opened my eyes in the hospital again. Staring at the unfamiliar surroundings, I clutched my head, struggling to remember who I was. Where am I? Hearing the noise, the man beside me jolted awake and rushed to my bedside. Sophia, you're awake? His voice was urgent. I'm sorry, I didn't know you. He reached for my hand, but I instinctively avoided him. Who are you? The moment the words left my mouth, Ethan froze. He looked at me in disbelief. What did you just say? I frowned, even more bewildered. I asked who you are. I thought to myself, not only is this person inexplicable, but his hearing is also bad. Ethan's eyes reddened as he stood there, staring at me in disbelief. Sophia, I know you're angry with me, but please. Don't joke with me. His voice cracked. I know I've neglected you these past days. If it weren't for the media livestream, I wouldn't even have known you lost so much blood. From now on, I'll do better. I'll be more considerate, spend time with you. Annoyed, I covered my ears. Who is this guy? I didn't know him, and his incessant babbling was driving me crazy. I looked around frantically. Noticing my distress, Ethan immediately leaned in. What are you looking for? I'll help you. My phone. After a brief search, he handed me a phone. Sophia, here it is. I snatched it happily, unlocked it quickly, and dialed my best friend Monica's number. Monica, I think I'm in the hospital for some reason. Can you come see me? My voice was bright, as if nothing was wrong. Oh, and there's some strange man here harassing me. Hurry up and get him away from me. The more I spoke, the darker Ethan's expression became. Before long, Sherry arrived too. She walked in and immediately clung to Ethan's arm. Mr. Lee, I didn't know you had a blood clotting disorder. She put on a pitiful act. And I shouldn't have been so impatient that day. I'm sorry. But I only did it because I care about Ethan so much. I just lost control. Her eyes brimmed with fake tears. Can you forgive me? I blinked at her, completely blank. I don't know you. The two of them were momentarily at a loss. Ethan's eyes reddened again, but this time, his expression twisted into something frantic. Without warning, he grabbed me and pulled me into a suffocating embrace. Sophia, if you want to play games, fine. I'll play along. But stop this act. Stop scaring me like this. I was so terrified and burst into tears. Just then, Monica's furious voice echoed from the hallway. What the hell are you doing? She stormed in, immediately pulling me away from him. Seeing the red marks on my wrists, her rage exploded. Without hesitation, she slapped Ethan across the face. You absolute monster. You've already ruined Sophia's life, and now you still won't let her go? What more do you want from her? Ethan looked up in shock. Sophia is my wife. How could I ever hurt her? I love her. Monica let out a cold, mocking laugh. She shielded me behind her, and pulled out a medical report from her pocket and shoved it in his face. How dare you say she is your wife? Where were you when she was diagnosed with a rare disease? Where were you when she needed someone by her side? Now that she's forgotten you, you suddenly show up playing the heartbroken husband? Spare me the pathetic act. 14. Ethan seemed unable to accept the truth. His face turned deathly pale, and his entire body trembled. What, did you say? His voice was hoarse. She forgot me? How is that possible? Monica glared at him, her anger barely contained. She snatched the medical report back and thrust it into his hands. "Open your eyes and see for yourself." Ethan's fingers shook as he unfolded the paper. His eyes scanned the words, and with each line, his expression crumbled further. After reading it, he was completely devastated. How could this happen?" he kept repeating. "Why didn't Sophia tell me from the beginning?" He turned to me, his eyes filled with guilt, as if begging for forgiveness. But I instinctively shrank back, hiding behind Monica. "When can I leave the hospital?" I asked her, ignoring Ethan completely. "And when will these strangers get out of my room?" Monica patted my head gently, like soothing a child. "Soon, okay? Once you're fully recovered, we'll go home." Sherry, who had been watching the scene with disdain, couldn't hold back a scoff. "Mr. Lee, stop pretending. This act is getting ridiculous." "Ethan, was she always this good at acting? She's just trying to manipulate you into agreeing to the divorce." Slap. Before she could finish, Ethan backhanded her across the face. "Shut your mouth. Get out. You're not needed here." Sherry clutched her cheek, stunned, but Ethan didn't give her another glance. Instead, he dropped to his knees beside my bed, murmuring words I didn't understand: please, apologies, fragments of memories I no longer shared. Finally, he looked up at Monica, his voice raw. Why does she remember you but not me? Tell me the truth, is this really not some kind of act between you two?" Monica let out a cold laugh. "Oh, please. Do you really think the world revolves around you? Do you honestly believe we'd go to such lengths just to deceive you?" Ethan fell silent. I didn't like him lingering in the room, so Monica firmly ushered him out. But even after being pushed into the hallway, he refused to leave. Instead, he clutched the diagnosis slip tightly, his face pale as he sat in the cold hallway. On the evening, Monica bought dinner, all of which was my favorite. "After we finish eating, I'll go to your place to hang out, okay? I remember you said we would play the socializing game, and when it's over, you'll give me all the money, right?" Monica froze for a moment, then suddenly smiled in realization. "Okay. The doctor said my memory stopped 6 years ago. Many of the things that happened over these 6 years have been selectively forgotten." During the meal, Ethan set up my bowl and chopsticks for me, poured water, and gently reminded me, "Sophia, stop looking at your phone and eat properly." I completely ignored him, laughing loudly at my phone instead. I held it up to Ethan, clutching my stomach from laughter. "Look, this person is so ridiculous, he actually bought a villa for his secretary's dog." Ha 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 ha. Ethan didn't laugh. Instead, his eyes turned red as he stared at me, his brows tightly furrowed. When Monica told me this story, I realized there are actually fools like this in the world. Instead of cherishing his own wife, he spent tens of millions to buy a villa for someone else's dog. Monica even asked me what I thought, like there's anything to think about. Even a toddler could figure it out, that man obviously wants to make his secretary his new wife. He doesn't want his original wife anymore. I sighed and shook my head, putting my phone down. Just as I was about to focus on eating, someone grabbed my arm tightly. Ethan was crying uncontrollably, tears streaming down his face. "That's not true, Sophia. That man still wants his wife." "Impossible." I slammed my chopsticks down heavily, convinced he was wrong. Even a 3-year-old knows that a man's heart is where his money is, okay? Even if his wife didn't see what happened between them, she must have guessed long ago that he had changed. If it were me, I'd rather die than have a man like that as my husband. After saying that, I happily went back to eating. But the person beside me froze, stiff as a rock. The doctor said I had amnesia and couldn't remember many things. I often clutched my head, trying hard to recall, but it didn't feel like anything was missing. Life still seemed the same as before. After meals, I'd go play with Monica, but unlike before, she was now busy with work every day. And then there was that inexplicable man who kept showing up every few days, his eyes red with tears, calling my name and begging for forgiveness. Once, unable to take it anymore, I turned and asked him, "You keep asking me to forgive you, but tell me, what exactly did you do to wrong me?" Ethan was utterly stunned. After a long pause, he said, "Sophia, my biggest mistake was pushing you away, blinded and foolish, heart and eyes both deceived. Now I've completely cut ties with Sherry. I've taken back that villa. Sophia, I found your diary in the bedside drawer at home, and I read the divorce agreement carefully too. Except for the divorce clause, I'll agree to everything else, okay? I'll give up the company too, it's yours. I just beg you to get better soon, to remember me. Please?" I shook my head. He said too much, and none of it made sense to me. I couldn't remember. 17. Ethan insisted on taking me back from Monica's house. Sophia is still my wife, and we're not divorced yet. It's not appropriate for her to stay at someone else's place. Monica shielded me behind her and asked for my opinion. Did I want to go with him? I quickly shook my head. No, I don't like this man. Ethan's face turned deathly pale. He stared at me blankly, his eyes reddening again. I disliked him even more. Later, Monica bought me a bigger house, saying the money came from my ex-husband. He had sold the company and agreed to divorce me. I asked her why. Had Ethan gone back to Sherry? Or to his secretary's dog? Monica burst into laughter, then her eyes reddened. He's dead. On his way back, he was distracted and got into a car accident. Before he died, he decided to donate his organs to you to cure your rare disease. Sophia, they say that little secretary was pregnant with his child, but Ethan refused to acknowledge it. He said it was just a fling, that you were his only wife. If you had known all this while you were lucid, would you have forgiven him? I shook my head. Truthfully, ever since waking up from the surgery, my body had healed, and all my memories returned. I knew that after my amnesia, once Ethan learned the truth, he had spent every moment trying to make amends, begging for forgiveness. I also knew he had forced Sherry to abort and severed all ties with her. I knew he truly regretted it. But I would never forgive him. Because no amount of regret or apology could undo the pain he had caused me.